Welcome to the first ever Fearless Army Cookout. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. This is a special live edition of Fearless. We've got all the gang here in town for a special show. I spent all day cooking, preparing the studio, buying alcohol, doing everything for a cookout. I did it all myself. It's been a very busy day for me, but you know what? I got a special show planned for us. TJ Moe is here, Shemeka Michelle is here, Delano's in town, Pastor Anthony Walker is here. We are going to have a great conversation, and we're going to have some very special guests joining us in studio. The country music rocker Aaron Lewis, one of my favorite artists, is here with us today. He'll join us a little bit later in the show. His song, Am I the Only One, changed my whole perspective about country music. I'd never really been a fan until I heard that song, and then it changed my whole perspective. I can't wait to talk to him. Aaron's a super patriot. Nick Searcy, the actor, he will be here with us live in studio. Nick has a tremendous documentary that he's put together called Capital Punishment about what happened on January 6th in Washington, D.C. Nick, those of you who remember, Justified is one of my favorite shows of all time. He was Art, the chief deputy officer in Justified for 5 or 6 years, one of my favorite shows of all time. He'll be here. He lives here in Nashville. We're going to talk about his documentary and some other things. And a guy you've seen on the show many times that has become a new friend of the Fearless Army, Bryson Gray, the Christian rapper, biblical scholar, Torah scholar. I think he can go verse for verse with Anthony, TJ, and Delano. He can go scripture for scripture with any of these guys, and then he can rap about it. He'll be here and join us in this conversation. But we're going to start by talking about something, why I invited all these guys here, Delano, Anthony coming in on a Monday, Shemeka coming in from North Carolina, TJ Moe. There has been a conversation we've been having in America, and we're just 2-3 weeks from the election, and most people, I think, have, particularly black people, have bought into the belief that our ancestors fought and sacrificed their lives and put up with a lot of injustices and fought against injustice for our ability to vote. And that's kind of the narrative that has been taught to us or shared with us. I tend to disagree with that narrative. I think that they sacrificed, and the civil rights movement actually started. It was about men, and men being providers, and men being provided the opportunity to provide for their families. If you go back and look at a lot of the footage early on in the civil rights movement, you saw men protesting in the street, I am a man. And it was about jobs and the ability for men, particularly black men, to be given the opportunity to take care of their families. Because at that time, in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, I think we all understood the importance of family, and that family is actually the most important thing. And we've now turned that into voting is the most important thing. And I completely disagree with that. And so I've been asking, and I think America is ready for a conversation about if the true leaders of the 1950s and 60s that created the freedom that we all enjoy today, and I don't care if people can lie and say we don't have that freedom, but trust me, I've talked to my parents, I've talked to my grandparents. We enjoy a freedom today that they did not have. And if they fought for the family, should we be fighting for the right to vote for a political movement that doesn't respect the family and whose policies aren't about supporting the nuclear family? And I think we'll get into we won't delve right into it here, but in the back half of the show, we'll get into it. I'm starting to see signs from people like Killer Mike and other celebrities, particularly male celebrities, that are starting to figure out that, hey, what am I really supporting here? Is empowering me? Is it empowering the black man and the nuclear family and just men in general? Or are we disempowering the man and male leadership? And so that's the discussion I want to have with these guys today. Today, it's not about me driving the discussion. These are people, obviously you guys know, you've seen them on the show, people I have a great deal of respect for, respect their intellect, respect their knowledge and commitment to their own families. If you notice, the guys that come on my show have families. I'm the guy without the family. You saw me cry about it last week. I won't cry tonight. I'm not gonna go beta today, but I bring on guys on this show and women that I respect. They're living the right way. They're committed to the right things. And so, Delano, I'm gonna let you get us rolling, and then from there, people just jump in as they want to. Are we starting to see people wake up to the fact that, particularly for black people, that we're committed to a political party that has really no interest in us as black men and as leaders?
I hope so. I do think we're starting to see that. I mean, there's some ripples and some tremors. The earthquake hasn't hit a 6.5, 7, or 9 on the Richter scale just yet, but you can feel the tremors. You know, as you said, part of it, we had this conversation on Friday in terms of Killer Mike. But Jason, I like the way you started it, right? So often you'll hear, oh, our ancestors died for the right to vote. Is that part of the story? Yes, it is. Because voting in a constitutional republic, not a democracy, a constitutional republic where the people elect their representatives, voting is one of the things that guarantees you equal citizenship. But there's a lot more to life than voting. And part of the problem, I think, with the left is that they boil it down, particularly when they talk to the black community, and especially when they talk to black men. The only thing that you'll hear them say is vote. Vote, 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 vote. That's the only message that they have. And I think that people are starting to see that and wake up to the fact that, okay, so I vote. Okay, I give you a job, you're making 6 figures. What does that have to do with me, right? Like, how is my life going to change materially by me voting for you? And I hope the tide is starting to shift. I'm not sure if it is, because we're still by far, in terms of black Americans, is still by far the most loyal Democratic base. But I said the other day, I said, I don't care what tangibles, I don't care if the left came up with a black basic income. You could not pay me enough to vote for a party that does not acknowledge the sex binary, thinks men can get pregnant, is for abortion on demand, thinks the government is a more suitable mate and father than men themselves, and refuses to acknowledge God in any of its laws or any of its policies. So some people will vote for that. I'm just not one of them. So I'm hoping that the tide is starting to shift, but I think only time will tell.
If it's just vote for black men right now, is to black women is vote so you can kill your kids. That's the message that they're sending to black women. I was watching, there was a concert last night, I think, or sometime over the weekend, where Lotto brought out Stacey Abrams onto the stage. And her message to the crowd, these crowds of people, were vote so you can have your body, your choice. And that was it. Like, there's a crowd of black people here, and that's the only message that she had to share.
Stacey Abrams says that abortion is the solution to inflation too.
Right,
and so
she did say that.
We do have Donald Trump's the wrong messenger for this. He's the wrong messenger for a lot of things. Again, 2-time Trump voter, but not he's a bull in a china shop. But when he said, what the hell do you have to lose? He was dead on. Right. It's like, instead of listening to the party that since the 1960s has said, hey, vote for us and we'll take care of all your problems, you should forget voting, because they've told you voting will solve all your problems, and take care of your house. Right. And also, I mean, Jason brought this up on the show not long ago. who are you to be voting for policy when you can't get your own house in order? I'm not
Right.
telling you people shouldn't have a vote. I'm telling you, worry about inside. The government is very unlikely to help you. They're going to cause you problems.
Yes.
So if you look inside of your own four walls, that's where you're going to do some damage.
Yeah.
There was an old gospel song that said, "Sweep around your own front door before you try to sweep around mine."
You know, when I think about this whole conversation, it takes me back to one of the things I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. The government is not designed to do what man is designed to do. Like God called the man to rectify a lot of things in his creation, and the government can't do that. And even going to what TJ just said there, we've got to think about, before I even leave the house to vote, what's going on in my house?
Right.
Like, how am I dealing with that? And really, if we want to get, biblical about this, there's a guy in the Bible by the name of Job. And he was faithful to God. He was great. God calls him great. If you call me great is one thing, but if God calls you great, you're great. Greatest man in the East, right? Satan looks at him and says, God, the only reason that Job respects you and worships you is because you're protecting him. Take that away and he'll curse you. God says, I'll tell you what, I'll take it away. Just don't touch his life. The first thing that Satan went after was his finances and his family. He took away all of his finances, everything on day one, and he killed all of his kids on day one. This is an effort to destroy Job. So that makes me zoom out and think, I know what Satan's plan is. If he wants to destroy man, he's going to go after his finances, he's going to go after his family.
Yep.
And then the next day, he goes after his marriage and his personal health. So I got to look at this plan from the Bible and what Satan is really trying to do. We haven't even left to go to the polls yet. And Satan's design to destroy man is to get his family, his finances, his marriage, and his personal health. So that's what we got to start looking.
So Satan's a Democrat.
So I watched the conversation you guys had about the Killer Mike interview with Charlemagne. I watched that, and I get it. He's politically astute. A lot of those guys, even Charlemagne knows, they know their history and all that. But I just don't understand the idea of, hey, what are you going to do for me? It's like, what are you going to do for yourself? And then worry about that. Because Killer Mike is like, hey, you went here, and I guess the guy who's...
King Randall.
King Randall, thank you.
Brian Kemp went to visit King Randall.
Yes. And
Young guy that's building schools, a specific school for black boys to raise black men. Brian Kemp went and supported that. I get what Killer Mike's saying, because there's no programs, and Delano and Anthony, you guys are raising kids, boys. There are no programs directed at elevating black boys. Every program, if there is a program for blacks, it's directed at daughters. And and so I get why. I've met King Randall. I know what he's trying to do. He's a young guy. He's not perfect. He's like anybody else, but he's trying to help young black boys, and Brian Kemp going out there and showing any support for that, and Killer Mike saying to that's where Stacey Abrams needs to be. There's no investment in the black man. There's no interest in his leadership. And I listened to Anthony, your point about finances and family and all that other stuff. If a man can't provide, it's hard for him to raise, lead a family. And we're being eliminated from corporate America and just leadership positions. It's there's and so we wonder why. And our show from time to time is critical of ministers, but the whole system is rigged against ministers. If you're assassinating men, you're undermining a minister's ability to gather men to lead a community, a church, and all that. And that's, I've told Anthony many times, I want to be Barnabas. I want to be an assistant to ministers. I don't want ministers to think I'm out to get them. I'm really just out trying to help them gather men to come help them at the church.
I wanted to respond to something TJ said, because I think this is good advice for all Americans, regardless of color. I think our entire political system is upside down. A lot of there's no way that I think the founders said, elect us, and then we're going to fix everything in your life, right? Too many people have gotten this notion that government is the end all be all on both sides, Republican and Democrat, black, white, Chinese, or candy stripe. Too many people believe this. And I think instead what we should do is say, okay, I'm responsible for these things, my home being first and foremost, right? It's my responsibility to educate my kids, right? As their father, me and my wife. We may delegate that responsibility for a period of time, but it's always ours to take back. But what we get instead is a political class that says, vote for me and I'll fix these problems. And both sides of the aisle do it. So, and I think TJ started with this. For me, the better thing to ask is, one, what are my values? What is it that I'm looking for in terms of concrete policy for my elected officials? And so there could be like school choice, right? I want to be able to send my kid to a charter school. One candidate wants to ban all charter schools. One candidate wants to increase them. That's easy. But other than that, the other question I ask is, who is going to be least likely to mess up my life?
Yes,
Right.
Because politicians have a lot more power to mess things up than they do to solve things. And this is just life in general, right? I remember when I was in high school, the church I went to, we owned a building next to the church. It was an apartment building in Brooklyn. And they needed to do some work on it. So when it was time for demolition, they gave us the sledgehammers because young boys with a lunch of free testosterone. So look, go break some stuff. It's okay, we like that. But when it was time to build, they went and got master carpenters and plumbers and electricians because it takes skill and precision to build. Yeah. Anybody can destroy stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things that you're seeing here. But when Pastor Anthony talked about Job, I've said this before, in the scripture, you see a pattern that emerges. Satan always wants to kill the man and deceive the woman. And when you get both of those things operating, he just sit back and say, "Oh boy, this is easy."
Right.
And now he's coming for the children with the trans stuff and abortion. So I mean, you see the entire play just sort of unfolding in front of our eyes.
And so that's the big point about, we do have to vote. I mean, it's biblical.
It's a responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I vote to keep them from wrecking my life.
Yes.
I don't vote for them to fix it.
Yeah.
Over and over. And you can look across the country, and we've done this for the first time since 2009. Glenn Youngkin became a statewide elected official in Virginia. And it was down the line. It was governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and their house. They got it all off of one thing, CRT. You're not going to touch our kids. And that wasn't a do something for me. It's leave my children alone.
Stop doing
Right.
stuff.
This is happening in California right now. Gavin Newsom and their legislation just passed a bill where they're a sanctuary state for transgenderism. And it's not clear whether the parents have to accompany these kids.
No,
so
I
in
don't think they
theory, a kid from Missouri could catch a flight or go with his friends, say they're going on a trip, and get all the transgender therapy they want in California. And so I'm voting to keep that from happening.
Yeah.
Right? Down in Houston, this is several years ago now though, they elected a mayor that subpoenaed 5 pastors and all of their and all of the hey, I want to see everything you're saying about homosexuality.
Oh my goodness.
They're trying to make the
welcome
Bible
that.
hate speech, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. So it's like I'm voting against these things, but when it comes to what are you doing for me? Nothing. I don't need anything from the government. What I need is you to leave me alone so I can get my wife and my family together and we can take care of ourselves. You leave me alone and we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think
Keep in mind of Satan's plan, as you were talking about, Delano. He doesn't come straight at the man. He comes back through the side door. He goes through Eve. He goes through the family, because a man who has his mind focused on God, he can overpower the enemy. But he says, no, I can't hit him directly, but I'll get to his family. And the other thing that Satan believes, before you jump in, Shemeka, Satan believes that there is a price for our values. That's what he was telling Job. Like, if you take this away, he will turn away from you. And so there's a price that folk are saying that, hey, I can get your values, I can get your beliefs if I give you X amount of dollars from the government. If I give you X amount of this, there's a price. And as a man, we have to say, no, we're good.
Correct.
We're good. And you keep that and keep our. But if you don't do that, then they'll just keep grabbing and keep grabbing and keep grabbing. And I'm afraid of where they're going because they're on a way there.
Yeah, I think that goes to, even if you look back throughout history, it's been a perfect design to get the woman to not even respect the man. When they start taking trades out of schools and then jobs out of America, it's like black women said, hey, you know, if you can't provide, what do I need you for? You know, if I got to choose between feeding my child and having this man in the house, I'm going to feed my child. And so the man has to go. It's like she lost respect a long time ago because the man wasn't able to provide the way he used to be able to provide. And so it's like, what do I need you for? Because you're not bringing in the money. And I think that was the start of black women starting to not respect the black man. And you know, when you're out there and you're feeling down about yourself, you may turn to drugs, you may turn to any type of illicit lifestyle because your family's gone now and you can't provide as a man. Men are providers. Yeah. So when that way for you to actually do what's in your nature is taken away from you, all hope is gone. Like, you know, so much despair there. And I think that started a lot of what we see now.
I can answer your question. When you said, well, what do I need you for, right? I shared a article a little early. I'm not sure if y'all got a chance to see it. I saw it last week. It was from the Washington Post. It was a story about the shortage of black male sperm donors across the country. Yeah, the Post, they did an 18-month story on this, whatever. And it was 2% of sperm donors are black men. And they were covering a number of black women who wanted to have black children, and they were faced with a decision. Do I go outside of the official channels, right? Somebody I know personally, some of these apps, or do I get sperm from a man of another ethnicity? And from the time when I clicked on the story, the first picture, I said, okay, she's a lesbian, so I know where this is going. And it got to a point where the woman who, she ended up getting an Indian guy's sperm, and her girlfriend broke up and this and the next, and it said something to the effect of, I wish black men knew how important they were to create families. And I said, that's the final shoe drop.
Wow.
This is the BLM sort of vision of black family life. So if the question is, what do I need you for? I've said this before, 3 things that the left, and particularly the radical feminist left, wants from black men. They want their vote. That's what we're talking about, to acquire political power. They want their seed to have children, because as much as some of them try, they can't fight nature's call.
Right.
And they want their corpse to power their activism.
Yes.
Jason, you remember on Friday when I read that piece from USA Today, that description of the tweet, and it said 2 years after George Floyd's death, a lot of companies made promises to diversify, and one group has failed to take advantage of that, and it's black women. That's why they say things like that. They're comfortable saying that because to the left, that is all black men are good for, right? It's like, give me your sperm. I don't want you.
Just your sperm.
I just want your sperm,
Just
so
a
I can
deposit.
raise the baby with my girlfriend. You know
Right.
what I mean? And you see this in so many areas of life. It's like, give me the baby. I want the carriage, I don't want the marriage. Give me the baby, I don't want you. And I think after a while, when men continue to hear that message, they're going to go away.
Right.
And then the women are going to say, well, I'm tired. Oh, I wish the black man needs to protect me. How you going to protect him? You ran him out the house.
Right.
You say you didn't want him.
Right.
So the what should come with the seed is all the rest of the man.
Correct.
His love.
Correct.
His spiritual leadership. His
Protection,
provision.
yes,
his
provision,
protection.
yeah.
His profession. All of that should come with that seed. Outside of that,
They don't want that.
you can't have my seed. You
Yep.
can't have me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now-
okay.
One of the guys in the story, and I'll let y'all read the story. One of the guys that this woman found, another lesbian, is married, father of 4, and it's like he didn't want the money. I'm not sure what his motivation was. So he met the woman at a restaurant. They had a do-it-yourself insemination kit. It didn't take. He came back later to do it again, and then they had sex, and then they showed a picture with her and the baby. And I said, oh my goodness, this is a dystopian hellscape, right? Because as I said, it's like they don't, when you talk about the dynamic between men and women, when women lose respect for men, it happens in more than one way. And when you see the sort of the vitriol, the way in which the left feels comfortable attacking black men, this is the iron law of nature. Weakness is always met with aggression. And they think that we're weak,
Right.
that we can't defend ourselves. They say, I don't need you, right? I've been married to the government for 60 years. He provides plenty for me. And I think that's one of the reasons that you're seeing people do what they do to Killer Mike. Call Killer Mike a sellout. Call him a shill and a so on and so forth. And I pray, it's not that I want every black man to vote Republican, because that's not even what I'm after. I just pray enough of them wake up and say, I'm tired of being used by these people who have no regard for me whatsoever.
Right.
That's my hope.
Yeah.
I want, and keep in mind, everybody listening, I don't say this with any type of pride, although I used to. I've never voted. And I don't say that with any pride. I'm just keeping the facts so you can understand where I'm coming from. But Donald Trump's inauguration speech, you got to keep in mind how I grew up. My mother was a 30-year factory worker for Western Electric. My father didn't graduate high school, built a bar in the inner city that catered to factory workers and working class black people in the inner city. So my whole mentality growing up was working class, union, factory worker black people. That's all I knew. That's all the people that I love and respect. And virtually everything I say on this show is a reflection of either my mother and her friends, because my parents divorced, or my father and the people I met at the Masterpiece Lounge, all basically factory workers. And so when I heard Trump's inauguration speech, I sent it to my mother. I was like, you gotta watch this. This man's talking about us. Because it was a speech about manufacturing jobs and bringing them back. And then so last week, we started talking about, on the show, safety in the NFL. And how all this hyper concern about safety in the NFL was undermining the NFL. And a dude emailed me, former factory worker, former union head, and he's like, you know, Jason, safety is how they ran all the manufacturing jobs out of America. That they use safety concerns to make, you had the unions got so powerful and they safety concerns and prices elevated, and you had to put in all these safety provisions, and companies started saying, well, let me go to China, let me go someplace else where they're not hyper concerned with safety. And so if you understand the nature of man, he's going to take risks. He's going to go in that coal mine. He's not he's a roughneck. He's going to climb a skyscraper and build it. And if 2 out of every 5 of them fall to their death, took one for the team. I'm providing for my family. Men are risk takers. They ran manufacturing jobs out of here under concerns of safety. And so my father, my mother, their generation of people, there's no place for them right now in America. All the people I grew up idolizing and running up behind, wanting to be like them, there's no, I'm talking about William and Dog Ballard. I can say Baby John. I can name all these people. They were my father's best friends and my idols. They were all factory workers. And we don't have those jobs. And so those men who were great men, weren't perfect, drank too much, but they provided for their families. I knew their kids. They raised good kids. They took care of their women. We've run all that out and so that's the deeper level of the game that's being played on us as everything becomes about safety, and they run the manufacturing. They're shrinking the male workforce. And enhance it. If everything's about what you can do on a laptop,
Everybody can
Right.
get in.
Women, anybody can sit on their phone or on a laptop and do these jobs, and you know the men are sitting at home with nothing to do, nothing to satiate their willingness to take risks and provide. It's and that's again. I get that the media has convinced everybody that Trump is the devil, but I think they're calling him the devil because he was actually representing some policies that were actually good for men.
Yeah. I think I look at my life growing up because now women want these six-figure white-collar workers, you know, but what I saw growing up was a bunch of blue-collar men. Like my neighbor, I believe he cut trees, but I would watch his wife stay at home all day, take care of the house. She made him homemade biscuits every single day when he came home. He was a blue-collar worker, and they were happy. Stayed together until death, you know, they parted. And so it's like now women kind of want these feminine or effeminate men that are just sitting on a laptop and, you know, get their nails done and can go with them to the salon. And it's like the hard-working men, it's like men have been cast to the side.
But I'm telling you, they want the fruits of all of the guys who do the labor. We just had a hurricane come through Florida.
Right.
Who's rebuilding those houses?
Right.
And who's rebuilding all the linesmen, right? We were just friends with somebody out here whose husband went down there, from here, went down there, and our boyfriend, I should say, and putting together the city.
Right.
Devastated. And that happens everywhere. We got a rather impossible infrastructure everywhere that men have built.
Exactly.
He was talking about the skyscrapers, but it's not just that. Men have built the technology so that women could enter the workforce.
Right.
These laptops, all of these, it's like you go through history, who had all of these innovations? It was men.
Right.
And so we still have to keep this infrastructure up. It's just like, well, we don't need men. Hey, set it up for us. Give us your sperm. We don't need you. We need you, but we don't want to see you.
Right.
And so they still want all the fruits of everything you're talking about. They just don't want them in the room.
But who's cutting the grass and who's building the houses and who's putting out the fires and who's
Climbing the telephone poles and electricity poles.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's almost like men have bought into it, listening to what you were saying, Delano, how they will argue now for these things. I can remember being in Dallas and saying to this black guy who was, you know, campaigning for BLM, like, BLM doesn't care about you. The only way they like a black man is when he's dead. He was ready to fight me. They had to call in security to actually take this man down because he was so upset that he wanted to push for an organization that didn't even care about him, wanted to dismantle the nuclear family, only wanted to push trans agenda, and he wanted to fight me, a black woman who is saying, black man, I think you're everything. You're more important than just being laid out in the street to push some type of agenda, but he was mad at me for that.
I've often said, if we're to pull the root of feminism out of the American culture, it's going to be harder to get it out of some men than it is some women. Because all of us have been acculturated this way. Many women, particularly nowadays, they know the deal. They see that they've been sold a bag of goods, a bill of goods, but it's the guys that are still saying, no, what, stay at home? No, man, she need to work, man.
Right.
And I was, let me be transparent. I was that way at one point, right? The first time my wife ever talked about potentially coming home, I knew she was saying it jokingly, but I was resistant to it because I was just like, no. You're a wage earner just like me. Get back in that office, girl. But then I just had to mature spiritually, and then I had to understand is like, no, God has created this world and designed it in a particular way for it to work. Right? You can use certain things outside of the design. All of us have probably gotten flat. I've driven 2.5 hours on a spare tire. But I would never buy a car that way.
Right.
Because it's not designed.
Exactly.
You don't get optimal performance with it that way.
Right.
But what the feminists told the women is that the best way to be a woman is to imitate men. And at the end of the day, if there's a single income in a house and a man is earning it, it's likely that he's supporting his wife and his children. If there's a single income in a house and a woman is earning it, it's likely that there's no man in the house because no woman in any part of history that I've ever heard of has ever been taught from birth that your job is to support a grown man and your children together. So whenever she feels like that's her burden, she's gonna say, well, why do I need you? And it's gonna
But
leave.
see, when you said that though, you got your experience. I look at my experience. My father died naturally when I was 2. I'm raised by my grandmothers and my mom. But even with that kind of upbringing until my mom remarries, my goal, I'm talking 5, 6 years old, my goal is when I grow up and get married, I don't want my wife to have to work. That was my goal coming, and this is being raised early on by women. I'm looking at, man, because I saw how tired my granny was.
Yeah.
I see how tired my mom is. I see, and it's like, man, I gotta do, and just like, young boys were growing up, and if you're athletic, man, I'm gonna go to the league.
Yeah.
I'm taken care of, because I don't, that's mentally the goal. But if we ever get generations, which I think they're slipping in now, but if we ever get generations where, like what Delano's saying, like, nah, you work, when me and my wife got married, we were both working, but the goal in my mind, she wanted to work at the time. So it's like, that's what you want to do, fine. But at the end of the day, this is my responsibility. I got this. And so when we had our first kid, she's, staying at home and taking care, and then, fixing something to eat and taking care of stuff. She's like, I kind of like right. And then it was, she went back maybe a couple of months. She's like, listen, babe, I'm okay. Come on. And did it take some adjusting? Sure, because financially we're in a different spot. But again, the mentality is that's my job.
Yes.
I'm supposed to go out and kill the pig and
it's
bring
your
home
instinct.
the bacon.
That's the big thing, right? It's like we're trying to
Yeah.
reprogram people against their own instincts.
Yes.
So it's an
Yeah.
internal fight inside your own head forever.
Right.
It's okay. So I work. It's my job to provide. My wife still works right now. We have a kid. But I'm telling you, we have since the moment we had our first child. My wife saw our daughter Haven and said, all right, how do I get home?
Yeah.
How do I stay home? I'm willing to work for a while, but
Yeah.
how are we going to do this? Because her motherly instinct kicked in. It took 3 seconds.
Yeah.
There's the baby. I want to stay home. How are we going to do this?
Yeah.
Delano asked a good question, though. Have we been programmed in a generation, particularly with black men, that we don't think the way that you were thinking anymore? And Anthony, I mean, you're in a church dealing with a congregation, diverse group of people. Do you see that mind? Because it's like men's instincts now tend to be, well, what's she bring to the table? She bringing what I'm bringing to the table?
Right.
And that's like a flawed way of thinking. She better be bringing something completely different to the table than you.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if we think that way.
The young guys, I hear what is going on in culture, but I'm trying to be proactive in programming it the right way. So when we bring in our men, we've talked about our men's retreat and stuff, and I'm pairing these older men with younger men, I'm letting them hear, okay, what happened in your generation that we're missing out of this generation? What were you doing then? And you get to hear older men talk about, I know y'all looking at these music videos and y'all seeing these women and all this kind of stuff. He said, but when I really settled down in life, I was looking for who's going to be best able to take care of the family, take care of the kids at home, who's going to be able to best help me in the vision that God has given me. That's what they need to hear. Because after a while, we all look good for a period of time, but things change, right? But those values are what gonna stand longer. And they, they get to talk about it. Do you really want a woman who is going to, I think about Dwayne Wade. Okay. No, wait. Listen, we got to go there for this reason.
Please do.
Let me bring up Job, and I'll come right back to Dwayne Wade. So one of the things that was on Job's mind at that time, they didn't really have a deep concept of the afterlife, and the way that people felt at that time was the way that a man would live on is through his seed. Like, what else is coming out? Because I'm gonna die, and that's where you get the whole concept of naming him Junior, because my name is gonna go on. But what switches over in a man's mind, Dwayne Wade, to where you say, you know what? Hey, you do whatever you want.
Right.
You be whatever you want. That's not. And somebody in that house needs to be saying, wait a minute. This goes against God's order.
Yep.
This goes against Dwayne, what are you doing? But that's where it's so I'm trying to answer your question. I'm trying to, proactively program, not reprogram, but to program young guys into understanding what God's plan is for you and what you need to be looking for in the next generation. Young men that are being men, being ready to provide, profess, and to protect.
I'm gonna give you a quick example because it'll be quick, I promise. Michael Sam, guy I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
He came out as gay when we were in college, and I'm not telling you this is the proper way to handle something because it's certainly not. But I'm telling you it's far more natural than what Dwayne Wade's doing. Michael Sam came out as gay, called his dad, and his dad basically hung up the phone and said Jack Youngblood would be turned in his grave. All right, again, not the way you handle it if you're trying to love your kid. But I'm telling you, it's a far more natural response than, oh, okay, yeah. And gay is one thing, was certainly societally more acceptable 5, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was, now than transgenderism. It's like, your son's a girl, and you're not just going to encourage that, you're going to become a trans activist now with your wife.
Right.
That's not a natural response. Again, I'm not telling you Michael Sam's dad was doing things right, because he's not, but I'm telling you, that's a far more natural response to be like, no, this ain't it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to answer your question, Jason, I've seen a couple of the podcasts with like younger generation, let's say mid-20s to early 30s, where they would be talking to young men, and these are all young black folk, and the guy was asking the woman, what do you bring to the table? And she was saying, I can cook and I can clean, I can do this. She said, I could pay for somebody to do that. And I was thinking to myself, this guy is such a fool. He doesn't understand that there's a difference between a house and a home, right? You can't pay somebody to make your house into a home. You can pay them to fold your clothes.
Right.
You can pay them to put away your dishes. But he doesn't understand all of the things, and I'm not saying this is all women bring, but this is part of what women bring to a situation, in the same way that there are areas in which men would impose order and chaos, right? We drive down highways because at some point some guys got together and cleared the road. And in the same way, a woman would take an empty house, and I know this from experience.
You got to tell the story.
I'll tell a story different time, right? And they'll turn that into a home, a place where he actually wants to come. But a lot of guys, they don't get that value. And honestly, we're so far gone, particularly in our culture, that if I could just hear a guy say, you know what, I want to marry before having kids, and me and my wife, we're gonna have dual incomes and we're gonna provide for our kids, I'll say, look, I'll take that. Because a lot of guys nowadays are not even doing that. It's conscious co-parenting on both sides. It's not even a conversation about marriage.
Right.
It's kids, marriage, maybe, not working, okay, and then you meet another girl. My wife knows some person, and when she met this guy, I think he had 2 kids by 2 different women. And then she had a child by him and found out that he had another child by another woman. So he has 4 children by 4 different women, none of whom I assume he lives with. So that means he has to support 5 households if he's doing his bare minimum job.
Right.
Don't come talking to me about why we're not building generational wealth.
Right.
How you gonna do
Spread
that?
out. You can't.
You can't.
You cannot.
It don't matter how much money you make.
Right.
So
We're going to pause the super serious conversation for a bit. Great job, everybody, but we're going to lighten up the mood a little bit. Aaron Lewis, the country rock singer, is going to come out and join me and Shemeka on set. But before we do that, people ask me all the time, what happened to Uncle Jimmy? Uncle Jimmy went to go do his own thing, but we still appreciate and love Uncle Jimmy. Here's one of his best skits when he impersonated Ben Crump. And then when we come back, Aaron Lewis is going to join us. X.
Have you made a mess of your life? Been in and out of the penile institution? Maybe you've been violated more than Kamala Harris at a Willie Brown bachelor party. Maybe you even strung out on meth, fentanyl, Oxycontin, or crack cocaine. Hi, my name is Benjamin Grump, lead ambulance chaser at the law firm Grump, Jackson, and Shopton. We specialize in turning around the lives, legacies, and reputations of career criminal losers. Perhaps you may be familiar with the work we've done with the likes of George Floyd, Jacob Blake, or how about Rayshard Brooks, just to name a few of our satisfied customers. 10 of millions of Americans are unaware of their right to turn a routine traffic stop into a deadly confrontation that leaves their families flush with cash and turns the deceased into American heroes. Did you know that 99% of Americans make the mistake of actually complying with law enforcement? Huh? You don't ever have to make that mistake again. How, you may ask? I can describe it in 3 simple words: anti-hero. The complete legacy makeover from Grump, Jackson, and Sharpton. Our law firm will teach you the tricks of the trade that are sure to escalate your encounter with the police into a financial windfall for your entire surviving family. Anti-hero will supply you with expired registration tags, illegal window tint, and if you act now, we'll even provide a broken tail light. All the things you need to provoke a traffic stop. But wait, there's more. I will personally train you on the proper methods of cussing at the police, flashing a lethal weapon, and wearing the most menacing cornrows, teardrop tattoos, and throwing up gang signs. Maybe you're even untrained in resisting arrest. We have retained retired mixed martial artist Chuck Liddell. He's come on staff to teach takedown moves, rear naked chokes, and a spar, and even round kicks. But that's not all. For a small additional fee, Anti-Hero can guarantee a social media campaign that includes say his name tweets from LeBron James, an NFL helmet decal worn by the Steel Curtain Pittsburgh Steelers, and how about even a congressional defund the police legislation naming your honor? Wait, want a statue honoring your heroic life sacrifice? No problem. How about a 21-night riot salute organized by Antifa and Black Lives Matter? Anti-Hero has you covered, and it can all be yours. Plus, 66.6% of the money we negotiate from the city, you can now rest in power knowing that your death financially benefited your biological mother and estranged father, boosted CNN and MSNBC TV ratings, justified nationwide looting, and most importantly, secured votes for the Democratic Party. Plus, you can rest easy knowing you have helped finish paying Al Sharpton's back taxes and the mortgage on my summer home at Martha's Vineyard. To get your complete legacy makeover, call now at 1-800-ANTI-HERO. That's 1-800-ANTI-HERO. Call now.
Welcome back to the Cookout. Jason Whitlock, your fearless host. Very serious first part of the show, deep discussion. I'm about 4 drinks into this Casa Dragona, so I'm feeling a little lightheaded. So I figured we needed to lighten up the show and bring on the man that turned my whole perspective on country music upside down. The only country music I was ever familiar with was I went to a Kenny Chesney concert in the early 2000s. Woman I was dating was a Kenny Chesney fan, took me to a concert. Thought it was okay. And then I moved here 2 years ago, and last year I heard Aaron Lewis's song, Am I the Only One? And it rocked me the way that great R&B songs rock me. it just spoke to me in 20 different ways, and I just listened to it over and over and over again. I was like, this is country music? And then I started just like, oh, well, hold on, let me listen to if it can speak to me this way. So Aaron, I'm so honored that you joined us today, and so inspired by your music, by your patriotism. Let's just start there with the patriotism and just the stand you've taken in an industry that comes down really hard on people that are patriotic. Why did you do that?
Well, certainly didn't do it for me, because it hasn't necessarily reflected well. I did it because I have kids. Because by design, it's my turn to care, and it's my turn to pay attention. And I'm taking on my role and responsibility as a very caring citizen of this country that believes in the foundations it was built upon. It's my moral obligation at this point to make sure that this country that my kids and our grandkids are going to inherit, to then be the stewards of themselves. You know, I want to make sure that the country that my kids get is better than the country that I grew up in, not worse. And this is beyond explanation as to what's going on right now. I think it's God reminding us that there is evil on this earth, and we've lost sight of it a little bit, I think.
It's, I wouldn't say it's funny. That's the way I feel, and I don't have kids. But my childhood was so incredible and so filled with hope and optimism and the
we're
belief,
about the same age.
Yeah, and the belief that I could do anything. And so I had two black parents that were like, you ain't facing nothing compared to what we face. You better go out there and get it. And I tried to quit my college football team. I was on a full football scholarship. And both my parents was like, buddy, if you do that, you are on your own. Don't come here. And because they were aware of how much opportunity there was out there for me. And I grew up very poor, Aaron, but it was magnificent. I don't have a bad memory from my childhood, and I grew up poor. And so I'm looking at people pretend like America's this evil place that's killing all of our, and it just blows my mind, and I just don't want to see kids grow up in this thing that they're trying to create.
You can't take it as anything other than malicious. Like, it's beyond, oh, I guess we didn't really think that through very far. No, I think you thought it through way further than all of us are giving you credit for. And the downfall of the American civilization is completely on purpose and is being done by a few people that hold most of the power.
Yeah, I definitely understand you saying you're doing it for the kids, because I feel like I could just say, you know what, I can live off the grid. I don't have to really be dealing with society. But my children, I'm like, I have to continue to fight so that my children and my grandchildren will actually have an America that I recognize or that feels kind of familiar. Like, I had a good childhood, and one of the things I think we didn't have with our parents is my mother never told me I should hate America. And now it seems like there's so many kids now, or people that hate America. My grandmother had a flag hanging in the house. And it wasn't, oh, you must be a Republican or anything. My grandma was a Democrat. She has been my whole life. But she still loved the country. And now it's like we're being taught, or kids are being taught, that America is such this evil place. It's so racist. You should hate it. They're burning flags. And if you're hanging one, you're a terrorist. And so that's crazy to me that they were actually, that they're teaching. And I believe what you're saying. I think they thought about it long in advance before we even realized
There's no
what
other
they
way
were
to
doing.
take it.
Yeah.
It's so blatant and so obvious. There's no other way to take it than malicious and purposeful. These people aren't dumb.
Right.
They're not dumb people. They're stupid, but they're not dumb.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're doing.
How has the music industry responded to your music and the stance you've taken?
I mean, I don't get played on the radio
Oh, wow.
at all.
I was wondering
mean,
about that.
Most media outlets out there, whether it be, magazine or on the internet or whatever, websites, they don't have very many nice things to say. I'm all those things. I'm all those things that they categorize somebody who loves their country as.
White supremacists.
All of it, yep.
Yeah. Domestic terrorists.
Totally.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because definitely in the black community you'd be considered a sellout. So I was wondering, how is it for a country artist? Is it kind of the same thing where...
I'm toxic.
Yeah.
I have issues getting artists that'll open up for me because whether they agree with me or not, their record labels don't.
Oh, wow.
Everything culturally is framed and narrated against us.
It's funny, the reason why your music and just coming here to Nashville, why I connect with you is you had major success with Sting. And it's been a while as a song anybody that would hear, whether they like rock music or not, I remember that song, blah, blah. And so you had this other mainstream pop culture career that you were treated one way, and now that you come out as a patriot, you're treated a completely different way. And you were celebrated as the lead singer of Sting, and now you're a pariah as a guy that's singing a patriotic song like Am I the Only One?
It's very interesting. I don't know what it is other than the infiltration of people that believe that this country needs to fail in pretty much everything. In pretty much everything. In the corporate world, in the entertainment world. All of those places that hold power in our culture and in our society, they've all been infiltrated by people that don't believe that this country is the greatest experiment to ever exist as a nation, as an entity throughout human history. There's no experiment that's been more successful. None.
So there has to be some sort of upside, and perhaps it's in the connection you have with your audience. Have you seen that become more intimate, more passion with your base, where it's like they recognize the sacrifice you've made to stand on your beliefs?
Oh, I definitely get 10 times the support than the hate.
That's good.
For sure. It's still daunting, though. I mean, to know that there's people out there that just hate me on the principle of disagreeing with my beliefs, and that they would hate me so much that they would want to see me lose everything just to shut me up.
Right.
That's it's daunting as somebody that depends on a narrative of its own to continue doing what I do, you know what I mean? Like it can be a very uncomfortable situation. It's probably why I drink as much as I do on stage.
Which song came first? Am I the Only One, or is it Everybody Talks to God? Because that kind of feels like just a
Am I the Only One
dust
came
off your
first?
feet. Yeah.
Everybody Talks to God is a song that a friend of mine that I write with a lot, Chris Wallen, and a buddy of his wrote, and I heard it, and that song had been kicking around Nashville for over 20 years.
Oh wow.
And no one had recorded it. Everybody was afraid to record it because it took too much of a positive stance on religion and believing in God, and it has literally kicked around Nashville for 20 years. And I heard it and I was like, I cannot believe no one has recorded this song yet.
Yeah, it almost feels like, you know, with maybe all of the backlash that you receive from Am I the Only One, it's pretty much like you're telling people, like, you're going to have to talk to God one day, whether it's, you know, you...
Listen, I'm no saint. I
Yeah.
know I'm going to have that conversation with God, and that's between me and God. But to think that conversation isn't going to happen...
Right.
Do you have another, Am I the Only One's about a year old now? Is there another one in the works?
There's a couple.
What's next?
There's a couple. They're actually the couple that I'm referring to it's out there. I had a good, eventful, and prosperous weekend with my buddy Bobby Pinson, and he came out for the weekend with me on the bus, and we wrote 3 or 4 songs, and 2 of them I've played already, and they're recorded, and they're not recorded officially, but they're recorded and they're out there. I did a performance at Country Rebel that's on YouTube for one of them, and the other one is out on YouTube just from people filming it when I play it. But there's one called If It Were Up to Me, and that's the one that I did at Country Rebel. And then there's one called I Ain't Made in China, because I'm not.
Is that an ode to LeBron James, perhaps?
But they'll keep coming. It's how I feel. I've always been very honest and forthright and expressed my deepest, darkest feelings in all of my songs, and that hasn't changed. Those deep, dark feelings aren't quite as important as these feelings that I'm feeling these days, that the outcome will affect generations to come.
Well, I don't want you to out anybody, but be as honest as you can. What percentage of country music artists, rock artists, probably agree with you, but just don't have the balls to say it?
Probably 30-40%.
That low?
Yeah. A lot of
I thought you were gonna say 90.
no, a lot of the entertainment industry is really, really drunk on the Kool-Aid. Just so indoctrinated in the culture of it all. It's virtue signaling to such an extreme to make up for how much of a piece of shit they are in real life.
Oh, wow. So the rumors of like Satan worship when it comes to rock
Oh,
and
I
roll.
don't know. I'll tell you what, I have spent as little time in the havens and bastions of that type of stuff as I possibly could throughout my whole career. I hate LA. I hate Hollywood. I hate being there. I never spent any more time than I actually had to in those places. Hollywood, New York City, like the meccas of it, of the destruction and the downfall, if you will.
Right.
I never felt at home there. I never felt comfortable there. I never felt like I wanted to be there, ever.
Yeah, you're just built different. Where you from?
I like trees.
Me too.
I
That's
like
why I don't like
fields
New York.
and mountains and,
Or the
and minimal
city.
people.
Yes.
You know, I like my space. Get the F away from me.
You told me you were from Vermont. Is
I grew
that
up in
from the
Vermont.
Vermont upbringing, or where did that?
I mean, I never really straight up lived in a big city until I was older. I mean, I always knew rural country life. That was always my comfort zone. You know, still to this day, I'd rather be out on my bass boat fishing than anywhere else in the middle of the lake, away from as many people as possible.
That's what like people don't get about me, and I don't want to spend a bunch of time talking about me. But like, I grew up on my father's bar stool, talking to factory workers and mailmen, and that's who I'm most comfortable around. I didn't know it until I was older, but I can't stand elites, and I like people that got average grades in high school.
Yeah, regular people.
Yes. It's
Just regular people. I'd be willing to argue that most of our highly educated elites have the street smarts of a thumbtack.
Right.
Like, there's a difference between book intelligence and life intelligence. And one is wisdom, and one is regurgitation. Mm-hmm. I can read 100 books and read them enough times to know all the words that are in there, to be able to recite them verbatim on command. I could do that, but that's not wisdom.
Right.
That's not intelligence. It's regurgitation.
That sounds like a guy that had just gotten out of prison and he was trying to impress me and he was like, well, do you know this word? And I was thinking, you've been in prison. That's all you have time to do is read. I'm not impressed because you can repeat that, you know?
You know what, my blessing is, and the blessing of the people I tend to like, is we never got enough book sense to think we were smarter than God. Mm-hmm. And that's what I look at. That's what I see from these people. They got so much book sense, they think they're smarter than God, which makes them retarded. And I still use the word retarded, and I don't care.
I don't either.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for coming by. I'm sitting here, you remind me of Steve Ford has been a great friend of mine since I moved here to Nashville. You're cut from the same cloth, man. We love you. Love your music, love what you stand for.
It was great to talk to you.
It's good to talk to you. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Nick Searcy is going to be here. Before we come back, though, I'm going to let you take a couple more looks at some other video skits we've done. I think this is me talking about my college eligibility, and I think Butter and Uncle Jimmy did a Good Ranchers music video. I think we'll play that, then we'll come back. Nick Searcy will be on set with us. Next! Good evening. I just want to start off by thanking God for these past 54 years at McDonald's, Wendy's, Popeyes, Taco Bell, Burger King. These incredible establishments have always made me feel at home and welcome. To the young men and women who have greeted me at the drive-thru window or in-store counter, I can't thank you enough for the prompt service, the willingness to accommodate my special requests, and occasionally sliding me a large fry when I could only afford a medium order. To my boys who were always down for a late night run to get a meal after a night of drinking, or when we had the munchies after some good dank, I will never forget you. Nook Nook, Big Ron, Little Shiesty, we did the damn thing every Thursday night at Old Country Buffet. And last, but certainly not least, I would like to give a special shout out to Ollie Gates and the entire Gates Barbecue family in Kansas City. everybody knows my man boobs would still be B cups if not for the way you nurtured me for 16 years. With all that being said, after talking it over with my family, consulting with my tailor, Troy McSwain, checking my cholesterol level and blood sugar, I'm declaring to commit to eating Good Rancher's 100% farm-raised American beef, chicken, and seafood in 2022. Good Rancher's meat will satisfy my spoiled taste buds and allow me to continue to lose weight while supporting American farmers. Thank you all so much. Big Sexy out!
Hey, what's up, Unks?
Hey, what's up, Butter? How you doing, man?
What you popping on?
Oh, man, you know how I do, man. I'm sitting up here, got this Good Ranchers jumping off. You know how I do, man.
Are those burgers?
Burgers? them is good old-fashioned American Wagyu steak burgers. Boy, you better watch your mouth. Hey, man, let me tell you something about this Good Ranchers, I don't know. This Good Ranchers put a song in my heart. Make me want to sing, you know what I'm
Trying
saying?
to make it look like rock stars out here with this grill.
What we should do, we ought to come up with a little song, a little something, pitch to the Good Ranchers people. See if we can come up
What are
with
you
something.
thinking, man? What kind of song?
I don't know, man. We ought to come up with a little jingle or something, man. Something to put a little, something to, I don't know, man. Maybe something like,
Uncle Jimmy got the grill on lockdown. I'll fire it up, so you better get ready now. We got the party started. I bet you're getting hungry. Feel the sorry. We got that black Angus bone in the ribeyes, New York strips, and top sirloins. Even got the Wagyu chicken and seafood. 'Cause everything we do is farm-raised in American heartland. We're cutting costs 'cause we're cutting out the middleman. Ship fresh to you. Hand trimmed, hand cut, that's what we do. Got a lot of good folks all around this country, working their jobs, coming home hungry. And we guarantee only the best for your families. Yeah, we bring the meat, you make the memories. Good Ranchers, Good Ranchers, Good Ranchers, we're Good Ranchers. Uncle Jimmy!
Welcome back to the Cookout. Jason Whitlock, your fearless host. Shemeka Michelle here with me. You know what? Nick Searcy is joining us, the actor from one of my favorite TV shows, Justified, lives here in Nashville part-time. Nick, I gotta be honest with you. The number one reason I invited you was I knew that you like good wine. And so I had an excuse to open a bottle of Opus One.
Oh, yeah.
And I've lied and told everybody, like, I got this for Nick. You know, I got this for Nick.
Well, I appreciate you
thank-
sharing it with me.
And
Cheers.
Nick's a little beta. When I asked him what he likes to drink, he told me Cosmopolitans,
No, I said martinis and wine.
martinis and wine. I was, oh, so you're one of those betas. So I broke out the wine for Nick. Nick, I got to be honest with you. I love this.
Yeah. Well, old age and whiskey don't mix, I've found. It's just,
Well, you know, I'm 55, so I'm getting there too.
yeah, you'll catch
I
up.
got this tequila here, Casa Dragones, that's also, I don't know if you ever had that, but it's also special. But anyway, Nick's here because Nick is one of these conservative actors that came out of the closet and like,
I
did
think
you
I
blow
might have
up your
been.
whole career or what? What
I
did
was too dumb to ever be in the closet, I think.
Oh.
I didn't know I was supposed to. So,
there was a time when you could actually,
yeah. I mean, by the time I figured it out, you know, it was kind of too late and everybody knew, and then I just looked like a fool. You know, they already knew what I thought about things, so.
it's fun. I ran into Nick a couple of weeks ago at Candace Owens' documentary premiere here in Nashville. I did not know that you lived here in Nashville. And then I was like, Nick, I saw you in Terror on the Prairie. I knew that. But I was like, man, you were on some show that I love. And then Nick Justified.
Yeah.
and you were Art on Justified. I watched it all. Loved probably the first 5 seasons of it. Maybe how long was it? 7
It's 6 seasons.
6 seasons. Okay, first 5 seasons. Loved. Last season I was kind of out on, but I love that show. I recommend it to everybody. But man, when you came out of the closet as a conservative, you done put together a documentary on January the 6th.
Yeah.
I watched it today. It's really good.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, Capital Punishment is the name of it. I figured that would get me a lot more work in Hollywood if I put that out.
Right.
Didn't really work out that way.
Yeah, it's really good.
Go. The gist of Capital Punishment. Go ahead.
Well, it's a bit, I was there. My friend Chris was there, the guy who I made the film with, and we weren't there necessarily to make a film, but we just went because we wanted to be there and see what happened that day and whatever. And so as the news reports came out about what happened that day, it wasn't like anything that we experienced by being there. And we just began to realize there's a whole other side of the story that the media is not telling you, and in fact, they're lying to you about it. So we found somebody to give us the money, and we started putting it together.
And what has been the reaction to that?
Well, for people who see it, I mean, it's really shocking to see. A lot of the film has to do with people who were there on January 6th who never went in the building, stood outside, and how the FBI has beaten down their doors and treated them like serial killers and drug cartel leaders just for showing up that day. And most of the reaction to it is that you can't believe that this is happening in America, that the FBI and the Department of Justice is treating these people this way.
And so you make the decision to wear your political beliefs on your sleeve. How has Hollywood reacted to that?
Well, it's a lot quieter at my house. I don't hear from as many people. It's funny. After January 6th happened, about 6 days after it happened, I was at home. I was back in North Carolina visiting my parents, and my agent at that time called me, and he said, "I got to ask you a question. Were you inside? Did you go in the building?" I said, "No. Why?" He said, "Well, there's a casting director here in Los Angeles that's been passing your picture around and saying that this is Nick Searcy and we should never, ever hire him ever again."
Wow.
And I go, who is this person? And it was somebody that I knew. It was somebody that I'd known for 20 years. I had their phone number. I called them up and go, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, I would never do anything to hurt your career." I go, "What? You kind of already did, you know? I mean, that's not me. You're going to call all these people and tell them that's not me?" But that's kind of the attitude there, is like, even my agent, who said he wouldn't watch the film. He wouldn't watch the film that I made. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
My wife called. That's my agent.
That's the problem with live TV.
That's my mother calling. But he wouldn't watch the film. He said, "I'm not going to watch that. That's a film about the insurrection, and I don't want to know anything else about it." And it's like, that's the problem with Hollywood. There are a lot of people in Hollywood. They want to demonize me and everybody else who disagrees with them to the point that they won't even hear the other side.
Right.
They don't want to listen.
Could you, if Justified was looking for art right now, would you get that job?
Maybe. I mean, I did know those guys. Graham Yost was an old friend, and I had worked with him on From the Earth to the Moon a long time ago, and for 15 years I'd been emailing him and going, "I thought we were friends. I thought you liked me. What you keep doing all these shows?" And so finally, when Justified came around, he said, "I'm going to give this one to Nick, so he'll just shut up." But no, I know what you're saying. It's in all honesty, probably not. I mean, I've done a lot of work since Justified went off the air, but a lot of it has been with like-minded people. A lot of it's not been with my old Hollywood connections,
So is that life probably in your rearview mirror?
No, not completely. I mean, I've got a movie coming out in December with Nicolas Cage that I did called The Old Way. I've got a part in a movie called Reagan, which is about Reagan. Dennis Quaid plays Reagan. That'll come out early next year. And I'm putting together a movie now that I might direct that's not a documentary. It's a feature film. And so it's not over. I mean, it's just, it's winnowed down the number of people that want to work with me, but it doesn't mean I'm dead in the water. And that's what I keep telling everybody. I said, you know, we have to stop being afraid of these people. I mean, you know, if they don't want to work with me because they disagree with my politics, then okay. But if you keep letting them bully you into silence, nothing's ever going to change. And they're going to keep getting away with it.
So, have you always been a political conservative?
Probably since my child was born in 1989. I mean, in 1982, I moved to New York to try to be an actor, and so I wasn't really paying much attention to politics. I was just sort of pursuing my career and trying to get in a play or whatever. But when my child was born, we had moved back down to North Carolina to have the baby, and I started auditioning for things there. And that was when the Clarence Thomas hearings were on. And that was when I discovered Rush Limbaugh on these old long drives to auditions and stuff. And that's where I started realizing, okay, I agree with that guy. So that's, yeah, I sort of realized around then. I was probably 30.
I just asked Aaron this question, and I was surprised by the answer. So you'll probably surprise me here as well. What percentage of the people in Hollywood, actors that you know or friends with or whatever, what percentage of them do you think share your point of view but just don't have the balls to express them?
I don't know if I could put it in a percentage, but I can say there's an awful lot of them. There's an awful lot of guys that I know, and it's people you would know their faces, if not their names. Some of them you'd know their names. But a lot of them say to me things like, you know, I agree with you, but if I said something like that, it would affect my ability to provide for my family, and I got to keep my mouth shut. And a lot of them are, two or three of them are black conservatives, which is really tough, you know, if you're in Hollywood. Yeah. So.
I'm sorry. How do you know Shemeka? That's the other thing. I'm at this Candace Owens premiere. He goes, "Oh, I'm great friends with Shemeka," and I go, "Shemeka knows everybody I met at that Candace Owens deal. You know, I'm good friends with Shemeka," and I was like, "Shemeka knows everybody."
That's right. Everybody's good friends with Shemeka.
How do y'all know? What's the connection?
Well, we met probably, first of all, maybe online, but he did the podcast, Cut the Bull. And so I actually was there on January 6th. And so when I saw...
Hold it! That's the first time...
Really?
That's the first time hearing that.
But you were cold and you didn't come out, right?
Well, I was cold, and so I didn't stay out there the entire time. I was supposed to speak. I was on the same platform with Simone Gold, who actually got arrested and did time. So when I saw capital punishment and getting to talk to Nick, I appreciated seeing the different side, because that was one of the things that had really been irritating me, is that everybody thought it was what the media was putting out. And I'm like, first of all, I wouldn't even be in a situation where I would have to worry about somebody lynching me or, you know, and there, you know, it's like, no. There were a lot of people there singing and holding hands and just having great conversations. And so capital punishment actually was the view that I had of January 6th. And so I was so excited when he did the podcast, because I'm like, that's what I saw. That's what I experienced. And yeah, I got cold once we realized that the speeches weren't going to go on. I left, but the way people were calling, like, "Oh my God, why are you there?" And I'm thinking, what do you mean? But in the weeks to come, after I saw exactly how the media was spinning it, I'm like, that's not what I experienced. That's not what I saw. But capital punishment actually gives the right perspective.
One of the biggest lies they tell is that, you know, they make it look like it's only that sliver of stuff that happened at the Capitol building. There were probably 2 million people there.
Yes.
And most of them were singing hymns and praying for the country and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Very patriotic people.
Yes.
People of all colors and races, and you know, Chinese Americans for Trump, and,
It was.
you know, I mean, it was a great crowd.
Nuns
I had a
for
great
Trump.
time.
Like, it was so many different groups there that I'm like, wow, the nuns and the Asians, you know, they were really, you know, having a conversation with me like, you don't want this country to be communist, you know, and It's like we were all there having a good time getting together, but that's not what the media shows
No,
at
they
all.
don't want you to see that.
Yeah, it was just a bunch of white supremacists.
Right.
Yeah.
that stormed the Capitol. And that
Right.
is the thing that came across in your documentary is, again, this story. I didn't know until today, till I watched your documentary, 2-3 million people were there.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
And your documentary did a great job of showing that, like, no, this was everybody, black, Latino, Italian, Asian. There was some woman that had to be Muslim. She was wearing a
Oh, yeah.
head. That it was everybody. And then you pointed out, someone talked on camera like, well, hold on. CNN and none of the television networks were there
No.
actually covering. Everybody covered what happened at the Capitol in the aftermath, like they were tipped off. Like, hey,
Yeah. How did they know they were supposed to be there and not everywhere else?
and not
you know?
not where the actual 2 million people were. And so, someone said in there that was true. This was like a fiery, mostly peaceful protest, and it was. And you know, I'm one of these nut jobs. And again, I'm a nut job, but I don't have a problem with the people that walked into the Capitol. I'm just sorry, I don't. I don't have a problem with it. Ashley Babbitt, that was it. You dang near made me cry today looking at the story of Ashley Babbitt, and the woman was murdered by a coward or someone that was paid to murder somebody. I don't know what the truth is. He's either a coward or he was paid to murder somebody so they could have a body.
I think they wanted more bodies that day, really.
Yes.
But one of the things that has come out since we finished the film is that we found additional footage. There's a guy named Taylor Hanson out of Texas who was in the hallway when that happened with Ashley Babbitt. And his footage shows a different angle, and it shows that Ashley Babbitt was in that hallway trying to stop the people from breaking the windows. She was yelling at them to stop. She was telling the police they need more reinforcements. She actually slugs one guy who's breaking the window, and this guy's name is Zachary Allam. It turns out that he's a Antifa, activist. She actually has a confrontation with him. So this whole narrative that Ashley Babbitt was some crazed Trump supporter in there trying to break down the door and attack Congress is completely a lie. She was in that hallway trying to stop them from breaking down the doors, and the people doing a lot of the breaking were not Trump supporters. They were activists.
Nick?
So now I'm a nut job.
Well, I'm certainly am.
I've been a nut job my whole life.
I didn't know you went to January 6th. I'm jealous of all the people that went to January 6th. It's
Well,
like,
it was really cold.
It was.
Yeah, maybe it's too cold for me, but I wish I was there because it's like, that's the thing I regret. It's like some people are saying, I voted for Obama, the first black president. I wish I had been at the insurrection, and I wish the FBI would come knock on my door. I damn near, it sounds crazy, but I almost wish I was a political prisoner. It'd be a hell of a book. I don't want to be in jail, and I pray for the people that are in jail, and I'm upset that we're not doing more to free these people that are in jail. I want to put that on the record, but I wish I had been there on January 6th. I probably wouldn't have went into the Capitol. I would have just gone and heard the speeches and took my tired old ass home, but I wish I had been there. I would needed that on my resume. It's like Crispus Attucks is a hero because he died in support of a cause that I believe in. And anyway, Nick, I'm so appreciative of you. I don't mind blowing a $500 bottle of wine on a beta male like yourself.
Well, if you're gonna go beta, go big.
Enjoy the wine. We'll have you back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I'd love to come back.
Oh, love having you. Love Justified. What's my guy's name that was the star of Justified? Walter Goggins? Is that right?
Walton Goggins.
Walton Goggins.
But I was the star.
Oh, Walton Goggins.
Right.
You got to keep it. I go way back with
He was
Walton
the
Goggins.
bad guy. Mhm.
Did you watch The Shield?
Yeah.
The Shield is,
Yeah.
and I used
It's
to
a
be
great
friends
show.
with, I don't want to say this guy's name, I'll probably get in trouble. He's probably a hardcore leftist, but Sean Ryan, the creator of The Shield, love that guy. He's probably a leftist. Don't blame him for any of my thoughts. I'm sure he's a leftist, but The Shield's one of my favorite shows, and that's where I discovered Walton Goggins. And that's why I watched Justified. It was a terrific show. You Were Great as Art. It was awesome. I may rewatch that. I rewatch a lot because the new TV I can't watch. It's too woke.
No, it's kind of dumb, and that's another thing. You know, I still have an agent, and they send me stuff, and a lot of times I just look at it and go, I don't want to do that. You know, it's like.
What do you think of Michael Rappaport? Me and Mike, I would consider friends, but my God, is he a loony leftist?
Oh,
I
God,
consider
yes.
Michael a friend too. His son and my son were playing like basketball, you know, little kid basketball at the same time, and. Yeah, I've talked to him a few times. I mean, I get along with him. His political stuff is
He's
ridiculous.
Nutty.
But
He's nutty. He's nutty. But I like Mike. He says a lot of nutty stuff, Mike. I don't want no. I don't
Well,
want.
I consider that. I think that of that as him auditioning. That's kind of how you audition in Hollywood now. You just come out really hardcore left, and they go, "Hey, what about that guy? He'd
Right.
be good in that show."
All right. When we come back, Bryson Gray is going to join the panel. We're going to bring Delano and Anthony back out here. Bryson Gray is going to join us. But before we do that, did you guys catch it when Uncle Jimmy interviewed Will Smith after the slap? If you didn't catch it, we'll show you now. Bryson Gray, next.
Will, let's get right to it. Do you regret your actions at the Oscars?
I'm not a man prone to regrets, you know.
Why'd you do it?
Yeah. I think there's always an aspect of us that when we feel unloved, you know, in any capacity, in any relationship, when we feel unloved, when we feel mistreated, when we feel somehow disrespected, it's a natural reaction to want revenge. And I think that's what happens with most people, specifically in our most vulnerable stages when we're children, and we haven't done anything to deserve that kind of treatment. It's really hard for the ego to not click into revenge.
Is it safe to say that you were a Lion King on the prowl the night of the Oscars, per se? Easy, Tiger. Your performance at the Oscars was a far cry from your days of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Where'd you learn all of this vicious behavior from, Will?
I think that is a part of my DNA, you know.
Really?
Part of it from difficult aspects of my childhood. You know, I grew up with violence in my home, you know, so I developed, you know, a really acute emotional sense, you know, out of defense. You know, I just needed to make sure that my father was okay. I needed to make sure things were going well, and I just became really hypersensitive.
But that Will Smith is not the nice guy that America's come to love, is it?
We can win, or I can be nice. Pick one. It was military-minded, scorched earth.
Now, Will, as you know, people say that this whole thing was Jada's idea. Just what exactly did Jada say to you prior to you walking up on stage and confronting Chris?
You're gonna be the hammer of justice. He was military-minded.
Okay, all right.
You achieved the mission. And there's two possibilities. When I give you a mission, there's two possibilities. One, you complete the mission, or two, you're dead.
Now, weren't you a little extreme?
And you can learn something from the extremes also, right? Yeah. And when you look at the athletes, right? There's a certain extreme mindset.
So, you and Jada like that mindset?
We worship that mindset.
When did you first realize that you were going to have a problem with Jada and other men? Just what exactly was she doing?
Bringing homeless people into our house when we were little and washing them in our bathtub. I thought that was the nastiest thing. But she would be in the bathroom with her hands washing homeless people.
Now, you've got to tell me, how did you come to peace with her bathing other men?
As I grew older, I just saw how dedicated and devoted she was to living her life in service.
We've heard, but could you elaborate on what Denzel Washington said to you after you slapped Chris Rock?
He said, hey man, listen. The way you make a woman love you, to make a woman love you, you take her out to dinner, and then as you going out to place, you just knock somebody out. Cause a woman gotta know you could defend her. You just knock somebody out, and if you knock, I mean, it could be a stranger, but you just knock somebody out, and she see your strength, and that's how she'll feel confident, and it changes everything. It changes your sexual life, it just changed everything about her. But you gotta get them good and just knock somebody out.
Now that surprises me. What did he say to you about you cursing at Chris?
Dear Willard, truly intelligent people do not have to use words like this to express themselves. God has given you the gift of words.
Shut the front door.
Be sure to use those words to uplift people.
Welcome back. Jason Whitlock here, your host of the Cookout and Fearless with Jason Whitlock. Thank you for tuning in to this special edition of Fearless with Jason Whitlock, the Cookout edition. We've invited Delano Squires, Shemeka Michelle, TJ Mo's been here, Pastor Anthony Walker. Now we're bringing on Bryson Gray. TJ's off eating, drinking, doing whatever we do at a cookout. Bryson Gray, you guys know him. He's been on the show. You know him from Let's Go Brandon. You know him as a Christian rapper and a biblical scholar. I almost want to have a contest here and have Bryson, Anthony, and Delano go scripture for scripture. But Shemeka, you could probably go scripture for scripture with them as well. I'm the only one that can't do it. But man, Bryson's a student of the Torah, the Bible, and everything else. You know the Quran as well?
Nah, I know a little bit of the Quran.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we are going to button our conversation today by talking about picking up a conversation Delano and I had on Friday about Killer Mike and his interview with Charlamagne the God, I think on Comedy Central, and it raised the question for me, are black men starting to tire of the matriarchal culture that we have going on? Particularly, it's across all of America, across all demographics, but it's most pronounced, most acute in black America. We have a culture dominated by women, and it feels like what I'm hearing from Killer Mike, the rapper from Atlanta, the Bernie bro, his meeting with Brian Kemp, the governor of Atlanta, his somewhat praise of Brian Kemp on Charlamagne's show is an indication that perhaps black men are starting to be a little bit weary and starting to figure out that this matriarchal culture that we have bought into actually doesn't work for us. And so we'll start with Bryson, get us rolling, and then you got, now guys, I've had some tequila, I've had some wine. I'm trying to show some discipline here, so help me out here. But anyway, you guys, Bryson, you start us off. Do you feel like we're starting to wake up that, as men, our job, our responsibility is to be leaders, and perhaps we shouldn't take this secondary role that's been given us?
Correct. And you can tell in culture. Like, look at the few cultural phenomena we've had in the last year and a half. You have Kevin Samuels, you have Fresh and Fit, kind of cringe, but also there's a reason that culture, there's like what is it called, Red Pill? I think it's called the Red Pill community, whatever they're called. There's a reason why that's so popular, right? Because that's how men really truly feel, but they need somebody to be that outlet to, to say it for them. Even Andrew Tate, why do you think he got so popular? Because this is what people truly believe. But when it's culture, you can't say anything about feminism or women because you can get banned or, attacked by the mob.
What you're talking about, and I'm wondering there's something on the internet called the manosphere.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's called.
And that's what I'm started. Kevin Samuels was a representative of that. I think a lot of your music is a representative of that.
True.
The manosphere is starting to take whole.
Yeah, and I agree with Bryson. I think that's what men truly believe, but some of them are afraid to say. Like, I interviewed a few men preparing for the book that I'm writing, and it was almost like I would have to talk to them 30 or 45 minutes just to get them to say what they actually wanted from a woman. You know, like, I want somebody that believes in me. And I'm thinking, I could have got this in the first 5 minutes if you were comfortable saying what you really actually wanted. But yeah, so many people are afraid because we have this matriarchal culture, and it's like they don't really want to say it, so they'll listen. Kevin Samuels, I mean, he shot to 1 million on YouTube like very fast because people are hungry for that type of stuff, but they watch it quietly.
Yeah, they gonna let you know about it. Bro.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think some guys are getting tired of it, but a lot of guys are comfortable where they are, right? I said in my column the other day, when Tiffany Cross, the host on MSNBC, made that comment about black men getting in line behind black women and vote for Stacey Abrams, there were 3 black men on that panel. None of them said a word. And there was zero chance that any of them would say a word.
Right.
In any slight, even the slightest pushback to say, oh, well, Tiffany, what do you mean get in line? I mean, black men are voters and they have interests, and sometimes their interests may not line up with your interests. But a lot of guys on that side, and still, again, the second most loyal demographic to Democrats behind black women is black men. So it's a lot of guys, I think, are not ready to move because that's what they know. This particular way of thinking, the way our culture community is set up, is what they know, and they think that they have power and influence and are leading. And many of them, plenty of guys, you know, they're married, they have their kids, they lead their families. I'm not saying that they don't do that, but when it comes to sort of the leadership structure in Black America, yeah, the head of the NAACP may be a man, but you and I, all of us know that there's certain things that when they happen in the culture, you already know some guys are not going to speak up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Delano, here's why I would disagree with you.
Okay.
Is I think a lot of men are dissatisfied, but feel like if they say what they think, they're going to lose access to the black woman. And you know, you can belittle them and call them eunuchs, or you can call them just survivors. That they like black women, they don't want to be outside the culture, the Essence Festival, whatever. They don't want to get those cards pulled. Anthony, I want to bring you into it just because I know you do some ministry and retreats for men. Yeah. What are you hearing from men as it relates to, hey, what should my role be? What are you ministering to men about, and what questions are they asking?
When you said survivor, I hear that. I think what's happening with a lot of black men as it relates to their kids and their legacy, they're getting to a place, and this is slight pushback to what Delano was saying, they're getting to a place where it's like, okay, maybe they're not voting a particular way. They may be pulling out and just say, okay, hey, my kid, we ain't gonna do this. So it's not we're gonna keep supporting this, it's just we're not gonna do this. We're gonna pull back. And they're starting to step up to, my son or my daughter, we're not gonna do that. Okay, it's not. So the whole, I'm sending you a mama and they just keep doing, no, we're pulling out. Yeah. And so when you talk about retreats and stuff, one of the things that happens at our retreats is you're getting more father and son. Hey, let's go together. Because at least, I may not have it all together. And that's where I think you've been mentioning more about, men who have some flaws. So you got guys who, they may have 2 or 3 kids from 2 or 3 different women, and that kind of deal kind of makes them hold back to, I don't know. But I'm starting, in my circles at least, to see, hey, you know what? I'm finna step up. Now I need to get rights to where I can go see. I'm counseling guys how do I need to go about this, because I want custody back. I want to, at least in those steps. It may not be political right now, so it may not be on the demographic line, but I'm seeing a strong move in my circles from the Nick Cannon kind of stuff.
That's what I sense,
Yeah.
and I think it's consistent with the message we're talking. I don't think voting is as important as just like, well, hold on, let me. Even if I can't vote right now because I'm trying to survive, let me at least say, you know what, baby, this is what's best for me and the family and for this boy we created. And the whole purpose of our show, I bend over backwards to platform guys like you and Delano that have families or whatever. But I'm also trying to say to the flawed guys with 2 and 3 baby mamas, you can stand up too. Yes, I know you made all them mistakes. Yes, that's why I sit and talk about all of my mistakes. But for the grace of God, I could be out there with 2 or 3 babies just like you. You can still stand up, and this has gone too far. And again, I'm not bragging. I'm not proud of the fact I've never voted. But I'm trying to say to people, even if you don't vote, just take a look. This is too far. And that's what I feel like I'm sensing, Delano.
So let me make a couple of distinctions. I think what I'm saying is there's a distinction between what we see in our everyday lives, what we see in the barbershop, what we see at church, what we see, when you're in your neighborhood, and the things that are going on sort of in the sort of leadership power structure within the black community. Okay. So in terms of the culture, in media, in music, in finance, in terms of athletes and entertainers and politicians and the most notable preachers, they occupy a different space. And part of what they do is say, okay, these are the things that we're going to say are important to us as a community. These are the policies, or these are the ideas we're going to pursue. These are the things that we're going to punish. So if you cross these lines, you're out, right? Our job as sort of cultural border patrol, we get to decide who comes in and who comes out. I mean, Kanye's going through this. Killer Mike is going through this. And what I'm saying is that's different than what you see on the ground, because there are a lot of people who are not on social media. They don't listen to any of these people. They're living their lives. They're coaching football, so on and so forth. I always concentrate sort of on the leadership structure, because every society has leaders. The question is whether they're good and competent or whether they're self-serving and incompetent. And I would say in our culture, in this day and age, the Afrostocracy, the black leadership class, is self-serving and incompetent. And they support everything that is destructive and dysfunctional in our community. And whether that's the abortion stuff, we were talking about Dwayne Wade, all of these things, if it's destructive, if it promotes black men killing one another, if it promotes degradation of black women, if it promotes anything having to do with LGBT, they are completely on board with it. If it promotes honoring God in word, thought, and deed, if it promotes a traditional family, if it promotes anything that is sort of creative in terms of creation, right? So strong families, so on and so forth. They say that's a function of white supremacy. So those are the people that I want to see.
The leadership structure.
Correct. I want the talented 10th, the people I know you really dislike. Those are the people that I want to see moved out of their place. That's what I'm talking about.
And I don't know if those people are easily moved.
Well, we're about to find out.
And literally, I think it's going to come from the bottom. And don't be offended by this, Bryson, but it's just like, I see Bryson and young people and independent rappers outside, independent people that are like, I'm gonna build my own path. Screw the structure. I think there's gonna be a class of, like Kevin Samuels just came from out of nowhere. Who was Kevin Samuels? And, image consultant that just say, you know what, I'm gonna be a talk show host. And he, who knows why he died or what have they say, whatever.
He did drink a lot of Red Bulls.
If you look up what Red Bull do to you, these energy drinks, they kill you. I had to go to the hospital because I was drinking Red Bulls. I'm a gamer too, so I'll be late night popping back, throwing that Red Bull. I stopped drinking them cold turkey. Went to the hospital. The dude, yeah.
So I see guys like Bryson as they're going to be the disruptor, because I think everybody knows the leadership class is corrupt. and morally bankrupt. And so I'm putting a lot of pressure on Bryson and young people. Y'all got to again, the fight, you know, Martin Luther King and these guys were young.
They were.
True.
And you know, Anthony with the gray beard, but Anthony's only
Real
40.
young. 39. Real young.
39 younger. Y'all got next.
But you know, what I see, even what you're saying, and I literally on Wednesday night, I was talking to one of my young guys. Like this generation has so much at their fingertips. Like going back to what King had, like he's literally starting from scratch. However, the formula that generation had, if we could take that formula and transplant it here, my grandmother, my mom, they always raised me to know you need to have a job and a hustle. Like you need to have more than one stream of income. You need to be self-sufficient. You need to be able to produce if all of this goes down. And even in owning your own stuff and producing, man, if we growing up at 15 had our own social media platform, Google and YouTube, that's all you need to start a whole movement. To start, I tell the young kids, like, look, don't let me out hustle you, because y'all have stuff. We used to have to go to the library. Like, you got it now. However, it's their thought process. If they've been too plugged into the world thinking for them, now they don't know how to think for them. And that's that formula from the old generation. They didn't have a lot of book sense, but they had some common sense. Oh, yeah. They knew how to think for themselves, knew how to make a way, knew how to pull themselves up. If we can transplant that to now, because at the end of the day, okay, yes, we vote, we have a responsibility to do that. But in my kind of world, after, you know, election day, I still got to go serve. Right. I still got to go function. Right. I still got to do that kind of stuff. So yes, there's that big thing, but then we got to deal with this. So when you talk about coming from the bottom, I'm preaching responsibility. I'm preaching faith. I'm preaching marry that girl. You know, I know you got vote or die, but hey, we need to marry. We need to take care of our family. We need to move in responsibility. And hey, voting on all kinds, that'll take care of itself, but we got to get this down first. So I agree with you. It starts from that kind of young, upwardly bringing, but man, they're looking to that structure that Delano's talking about. They're looking at that generation and coming out and saying, man, I want to be a billionaire. I want to be a this. And it's like, oh, do you want to be a father and a husband and an educator and a producer and a job creator? Like, you can do that from where you are with what you have.
Yeah. What I like too about Bryson and some of these guys that are more conservative leaning, like, yes, he wants to be a business owner. Yes, he wants to be a husband and a father. And I think also they haven't been beaten down as long by feminism. And so, because I always say, like, you couldn't have a Jezebel without an Ahab. Ahab allowed her to be unruly and uncontrollable. And so I feel like these men now that are kind of hitting the ground running are like, you know, no, Jezebel, I'm not getting ready to be the Ahab in this equation. So I appreciate that, because they have everything that the older generation have given to them, but also this enough is enough. And I think that is the good thing, you know. And Delano, you're in there too, that enough is enough. Whereas, you know. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, every once in a while I think about this, I'll say, man, I'm glad I'm married, because if I was a single guy on Fearless saying the things that I'm saying, oh boy, it'd be some slim pickings out there. Because I preach.
But they really want your qualities, though. They really do.
Now, women like that, bro. Even most feminist women, they, if you talk to them, they like the strong man that's not afraid, that's bold and stuff like that. They still like it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true, right? But it's, again, on the surface, I see so many guys, and I've seen this, like, literally, I'll ask a guy something about, you know, men and women, you know. It was a question about, do you think that the Bible allows women to be pastors or elders? And we're going back and forth on that. And then I asked the question, well, do you think the Bible says that a husband is the head of his wife? And look at
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think so. It's like, so part of it is sort of reinvigorating men to feel comfortable speaking their minds because, as you said, a lot of us have been beaten down and we've gotten the lessons. And many of the people who are holding the canes are the very people I'm talking about in the culture. Again, say whatever you want about Kanye West and the things that he's been saying. And some of it, it's hard for me to understand what he's saying. But the message is crystal clear. You could preach all types of murder, pimping, stripping, and drugs, and nobody is ever going to question you. But if you say some things about people in certain groups, now hey, you got. I've seen black folk on the left, the Lamont Hills and the Ilhan Omar saying we stand against anti-Semitism. I say when did y'all become you know Zionists or something like that?
Preach.
So it's one of those things where our culture, we send out the messages crystal clear, and that's why I asked you the other day where you were saying, no man, I think Charlemagne he's turning, and I said, Jason, can you think of any one of these guys who, when Dwayne Wade says, I'm so proud of my daughter, that they would stand up and say, your son.
Right.
Son.
All you have to do is look on Instagram in the comments. When he posts something, you know, they're always like, oh, she's so beautiful. And I'm like, it's a he!
Exactly.
You know? But the celebrities are all buying
all
into
of them.
it.
Because they don't want to mess up that chick. Man, listen, all these people, they get paid. I go back to that juvenile vax that thing in this video. But my boy probably got paid like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to do something like that, so he gonna do it. The problem is people are slaves to money instead of being slaves to God.
Right.
So that's where the main issue is. When you enslave the money, your morals can be whatever I want your morals to be.
Correct.
Right.
If I'm cutting your check, you're gonna do whatever I tell you to do. That's why all these rappers like Lil Nas X, he was falling off before he came out as a homo. Right? Next thing you know, now he on the top of the Billboard charts. He was literally at the Old Town Road, he was on the way down.
Yeah, because he's not good.
Whoa. After Old Town Road?
After Old Town Road, his next 2-3 singles was flops. He was on the way out. And then he came out and said he was a sussy boy, and then next thing you know, he back on the top of the charts. Kid Cudi career was pretty much done. He put on the dress. Now everybody talk about him.
Correct.
I mean, all these people get paid to do these things by their the people in charge.
So, Bryson, why are you different in terms? You were on the cusp. You and the 336 Boys of commercial success. Why is it something your father, mother, church put into you? Why are you different, and how do we get that to more young people?
I know you want such a beautiful answer. I'm just crazy, bro. Like I've always been crazy. If you talk to my parents will tell you I've always been crazy, just literally since I've been alive. So I have no chill button in my brain. So it's like I don't believe in what do you mean I can't say this? And I would say it more just to make you upset at this point. Because you shouldn't have told me I couldn't say it. That's what I'm saying.
That's true.
That's what Kanye. Let me tell you something. Kanye, one of my favorite artists ever, right? My issue with Kanye is sometimes he'll back down just to eensy-teensy bit in his interviews. And I'll be like, man, don't give them what they want, because I won't give nobody. You don't get, actually, because I don't give nobody what they want.
Right.
I gave you what I wanted to give you when I told you the first time, so you're going to take that how it is.
I think that's how we pretty much bonded, because I'll see Bryson going real hard, and I might slip him an inbox message
Facts. Because you got to be willing to miss opportunities, but...
Bryson, hold for 1 second, though, because I think it's youth speaking in terms of I'm crazy. And people will hear that and think, well, I'm not crazy, so I don't need to be like Bryson. And so I don't think it's accurate, because there's nobody in my family that wouldn't say that Jason, coming out of the womb, if he believed it, Jason Whitlock was going to say it and stand on it. And that's not crazy.
Right.
That's something my grandmother put in me, and 25th Street Baptist Church put in me.
So I don't mean
there's
crazy.
Some truth. I'm just standing on it until someone proves me wrong.
Right. I don't believe crazy in the sense that when Kanye calls himself crazy, like bipolar. No, I am perfectly sane. When I say crazy, I mean, you know how sometimes it takes people a little bit crazy to do the things we do. Not crazy in the literal sense, crazy as in that person just literally doesn't care.
Yeah. There's a saying, and it's been quoted that is not from the person, but it's like a well-behaved woman rarely makes history. And it's like you gotta be that person that's willing to kind of go against the grain, you know? Yeah.
But think of that phrase, right? Over the last, forget about 60 years, 20 years, 5 years, what we've seen is that the men have become well behaved and docile. And the women, one of the top female artists is literally Megan Thee Stallion.
Right.
Stallion is an uncut horse,
And
right?
male, right.
That will run and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all the guys are sitting over there, they're geldings. And that's why I said, when WAP came out, I already know like clockwork. None of these guys, none of the loud voices, the social justice people are gonna say, you know what, I think putting those images out to our community is a net negative, particularly for young girls coming after Cardi and Meg. I know there's zero chance they're gonna do that because all of them, they're very well-behaved men when it comes to those types of issues. If it's something that will benefit our community, they sit there and they're very docile. But when it's, I heard a white person in Iowa said she don't like Beyonce. Now they chanting and they say Black Lives Matter. And I'm just like, they have the wrong values. And part of the problem is, you said, with money. At a certain point, we got to ask ourselves, how long will we play the harlot? Because, and I said the other day, I'm not trying to be Gomer. You know what I mean? I'm not a whore. And I'm just, Mom, which camera? Mom, I'm sorry. You understand? I'm not going to let somebody pay me and entice me with money to say things that I don't believe. Because at the end of the day, I have to answer for every single word that I utter on this earth. Yes. I have to look my wife in her eye when I go home. I have to look my children in their eye. Yes. And when I tell them, I want them to be courageous. I want them to be obedient to God first and foremost. And then they look back at me and say, well, Dad, you're not that way. You're obedient to money. And whoever's cutting you the biggest check, you'll say whatever you want to say out of your mouth. And that's my problem with these people. I know that they're lying. If you ask any of these men, you say trans women are women. Okay, show me a Tinder profile.
Right.
Show me where you checked, I'm interested in trans women. And they said, man, I ain't want no lady with no PP parts.
Unless you Chance the Rapper.
Well, hey, I saw that, and I was so disgusted, bro.
I don't even know what that's about, but whatever. If Shemeka said it, I believe it. So
Anthony, I want to throw it back to you. When I listen to what Delano's saying, and what I hear what Bryson is saying, and Bryson is young, and I've been there where I thought, nah, I'm just crazy. And then what I figured out is like, no, I'm just based in truth that was put in me at 25th Street Baptist Church and my grandmother, and I just hear based. What do you hear?
Yeah, that's true.
I hear confidence. I hear self-assurance, which is what the young guys that I'm around, I'm trying to speak to them. There's a demographic of young people that look at mass effect and are not really cultured in, hey, just being consistent, going to work daily, bringing home a check, making an honest living, that stands out in the world that we're in. And so if you are confident, my very first sermon at 11 years old, do you know the truth? Always been about truth. Okay, so if I stand on that, but what that means to me is I have to have a family system that fortifies me when I'm 14, 15 years old and everybody else is doing this. And I'm saying, man, but I got to do this. Nah, you're not like the rest of them. You're on your own path. And that over time shows itself through. And so I have to live it so that I can show them, hey, it's all right. And I'm teaching them, as well as my own kids, be productive yourself, right? You know, yeah, you can have a talent to do and you can rap and do all this kind. Now, you know what? I'm going to buy my own equipment. I'm going to do my own thing. I don't have to partner with another. I got my own stuff here so they can take all of that away and I'm still doing me. That's what Kevin Samuels did. That's what we're seeing a lot of that. So when I hear what Bryson did, when I hear what you did, I have seen it in myself, which is I'm confident in Anthony Walker. I'm confident in Jason Whitlock. I'm confident in Bryson. I got this, I'm good. And regardless of the mass effect and mass appeal, I'm confident in this and I can move in this. And I'm good with that. And if we have men that are like that it doesn't really matter what the rest of the, no. This is true. You know, imagine, like I'm with Delano. Imagine any of these big time, hey, listen guys, trans women are not women. Okay,
That's all I gotta say.
That's it. Just put it out. I mean, and And I'm talking even to the guys that are married, like they have kids. We know how this equation works. Right? We know what it takes to do this. Just make that declaration and be willing to stand. That doesn't mean that I hate everybody. That doesn't mean I don't have to buy into all of that. But if I stand by truth, yes, it's going to affect the world of lies, and I have to be prepared for that.
Correct.
That I know this is what's going to happen. But now I hear the same confidence that I'm trying to preach and teach to others. It is a truth base.
I think one of the things, and I learned this as I got older, and I hope it's helpful, particularly for parents, because sometimes you have that child and you think that they're stubborn and that they're obstinate and disobedient. And sometimes when they're young, they are. But what you're starting to see is that, okay, I have a child that's not easily moved. And that's one of the things that I had some of that, when I was a younger person and growing up. And you need that, because the truth is not popular nowadays.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that everybody's running from it. I mean, as I said, these guys are going to run and hide. And the reason I always harp on the Afrostocracy is because, as Pastor Anthony was saying, I'm just doing a thought experiment. If every single black person with a major platform, the politicians, the pundits, the preachers, the professors, and the performers, if they took all the energy they put into trying to get white folks straight, you got to read this book and do this and send your kid to this school and put this and post this and that, and they said we are gonna collectively promote certain types of values, right? Marriage before carriage, work hard, education, entrepreneurship, faith, so on and so on and so forth. Our community conversations will be transformed overnight. If the CEO of BET said, look, if you want to have your show or your video on BET, no GMO music, no guns, no murder, no ops, or B or H, none of that stuff. It would change our community conversations overnight. But they're not going to do that, because as I said, like, we've been in this cycle of whoredom and boredom, idolatry and harlotry for a very, very, very long time. And it's hard to shake people out of that. And that's why I said to you Friday, the suburban moms, they don't have anything to lose. They're looking at their kids, they're seeing their kids being trampled on, and they say, who cares? But the guys who got 60 million in the bank and they got a $75 million lifestyle, they said, this money can't run out. And they'll sell all of us out. Yeah. All of us. All that black solidarity stuff is gonna go out the window. They said, look, Delano, oh my gosh, no, please, no, get him out of here. No, I believe you, Jim Bob. No, I'm with you. I stand with you. I'm not with him. So it's like we got to understand, the fight that we're fighting, and this is where it is today.
Those are the real sellouts, the ones that don't mind preaching that death culture. And you're right about BET. Like, my daughter is a rapper. I had to introduce her to Bryson because I had to say to her, listen, because she said she doesn't want to curse. She doesn't want to talk about killing people. She doesn't want to be, naked. And I said, well, you realize this means you're going to have to actually believe in yourself because you're not going to have people lined up wanting to work with you because you're actually talking about something. So I appreciated the fact that we had Bryson, someone young who actually makes good sounding music, because sometimes when it's Christian music, it's like,
Oh, I know for sure.
Right. But this is like good music with a good beat, and you want to rap along, and so it was helpful to have somebody to point to say he did it. And especially when you bought your parents, you paid off their house. It's like, okay, look, this is an example. So it's needed for sure.
Thank you. But all this stuff is planned. So it's not like, I'm put it like this. I had a song called False Teachers, right? And I got a guy to push it on radio. The radio stations loved it. These are Christian radio stations, by the way. Christian radio stations. That's a very crazy point I need people to realize. They contacted the guy back I had working for me and said, we love the song. We'll actually play it. But he got to take out the part about the LGBT. I didn't curse. I didn't even call him one of my favorite words. All I did was, talk about what the scripture says, right? And he said, bro, you just got to take it out, bro. I got like 10 of the biggest Christian stations ready to play it. I said, take what out? The Bible? You know what I'm saying? The Bye Bye the Christian song for a Christian radio station. I was like, nah. So I just gave it up. But the drop songs, what you said, what you call it, GMO raps. Oh, they play that. That's what they need. You give them that. That's what they want from you.
Yeah.
And 'cause like I told Jason this last week. They talking about real people on these songs.
Yes.
Real kids that are dead in the
Yes.
song. Real
Yes.
like this is real. Their mamas are doing interviews still, crying in the interviews
Right.
still
Yes.
because their kids are being mocked for the last 10 years.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And that can get played on the radio though.
Yeah.
And what happened when New York tried to ban drill music? All the rappers came together.
Oh yeah.
Like freedom of speech.
Right,
You
exactly.
can't ban our freedom of expression.
And that's awful. Drill rap is
That
terrible.
was disgusting.
Yeah.
That's we're going to end on that note, Bryson, that a Christian radio station, hey, take the Bible out of your song and then we'll play it. That's what keeps me up at night. But I've had too much to drink. I'm going to bed. The cookout is over. I may have me another chicken wing or two, but the cookout is over. Thank you for joining us. We'll play tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all this moves for freedom.